Just a quick disclosure to share in conjunction with this podcast. Each of us are speaking to our personal experiences and do not consider ourselves experts and cannot offer medical, therapy, financial, or legal advice. We represent a wide range of experience on the autism spectrum and will always honor each perspective that is brought to our discussions. Our experiences, opinions, and perspectives are all unique and different and will be celebrated. Thank you so much for listening and connecting with us. Thank you. Welcome to Navigating Adult Autism. We are just 7 moms with a lot of perspectives, a lot of opinions, and a whole lot of experience. My name is Mary, and I'm here tonight with Heather, Cynthia, Tara, Dawn, Elizabeth, and Kara. And our topic right now is service coordinators or support coordinators. Sorry, service coordinators are in schools. Support coordinators are outside of that. So when you have a child with a disability, you are urged to get a support coordinator for your child, correct? And I'm going to read the definition of what that means for all of you out there in the podcast world that don't know what that means. A disability support coordinator helps people with disabilities and their families find the services and support they need to live independently and participate in their community. They work with individuals to develop plans, help create a person-centered service plan based on the individual's goals, needs, and wishes, often called, a PCSP. They also help you find services. They help people access the services they need, including medical, social, educational, and other support services. They also monitor plans, ensure that plans are implemented correctly, and that the individual's outcomes are met. They also provide information. They help people understand their options, and they also advocate and how to advocate for themselves. There's also links to resources, and they help connect people to different advocacy resources. Support coordinators should have a variety of skills, including interpersonal skills, reading comprehension.
Well, that's good.
Yes. Professionalism, customer service, organization and time management, computer literacy, and file management. So we are here to talk about support coordination.
I think one thing they left out, or maybe wasn't real specific about, is that's where a lot of the funding runs through. So you read the definition and people say, well, I could do that myself. I could do that myself. I could do that. We're already involved. But there's pieces of funding that can only go through them. So
true. Did you want to expand on that? Or do you know,
well, I think maybe we could first kind of really talk about what it is, how do we get it? You know, I know Kara knows a little bit more about the history and kind of that process.
Right.
Before we, dive into that, the funding piece.
And it started when our kids were young, right? Right when they got a diagnosis, we were urged to go to the regional center here in Southwest Missouri. That's where we were urged. I don't know, maybe different in your state. Do you know other names it's called, Elizabeth?
So each state's going to have some kind of entity. So here in Missouri, we start with, it's through the Department of Mental Health. In another state, it might be under the Disability and Senior Services. You know, so it depends. So it's not always the Department of Mental Health. It's whatever that state has predetermined where the support coordination goes through. So but every state is supposed to have this, what we're talking about.
Okay. Which is the regional center. And I know I rushed my own son to the regional center because that's what I was told to do. It's just a deer in the headlights. Didn't know, but you need to go there. You need to go there. And I thought, well, don't I have to call my doctor first? And I did, but I don't know. We were urged to go there, and we saw someone that evaluated the individual.
Intake. Yeah, you went through a specific intake person, and then they do some evaluations and questionnaires.
Yeah, we had the questionnaires, the paperwork, yes.
They determine whether you can, if you do get support coordination. Many years ago, Kelsey's now 31, when she was diagnosed, and then they referred us over to the regional center. I can't remember who referred. I don't know if it was the pediatrician, or maybe a friend told me.
I think a friend told me.
You can self-refer.
Yeah.
Self-refer, okay.
And then you go through the intake process, and then when they determine, they look at the abilities or disability, then they turn around and appoint you a service coordinator.
Okay.
So when they're doing those forms, what they're looking at is where is your individual compared to the same age peers. So it could be, and these start at 3 because those 0 to 3 is our first steps, right? So this starts at 3. So, but, somebody, in the last few years, I've talked to people that, were, I think one was even in his 60s, and 40s, where they were able to be eligible because they are those forms and those questionnaires, they're looking at where are they at compared to same age peers. And there's 5 or 6 areas they kind of look at, and you don't have to qualify across the board. So it could be somebody that is, very verbal, but doesn't have a lot of self-help skills or those daily living skills. So you don't have to qualify across the board. So if you think, well, I can do this, or I can do that, or my child can do this, they might be real successful in certain areas. Yeah. And I still remember once I had Chase and was doing his, and they were asking questions, and she got to one question, and I was like, no, he doesn't do that. Then I got a call from the school, and I walked out, and I said, okay, you know what? I said on number 6, change it. He just did it. So.
Right.
I don't even remember Zion going. Now, did the child actually have to be there, or could you just provide paperwork?
Yeah, the child doesn't have to be there.
Okay,
they're not.
He was not there. I don't
think. They because they're not, that type of professional. They're not going to be evaluating.
Okay, I thought that's what you meant.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think Zion was there.
But if if you're an adult and your own guardian, then you're going to answer your own questions.
Okay, now I understand.
So I don't think so. You don't have to have a diagnosis, an official diagnosis of anything.
I didn't.
I'm just asking.
Back in the day.
Ooh, that's
because
very good question.
I only say that from our own experience is that we did not go to the regional center, until we had the diagnosis letter from the peds neurologist. That's the first time we were told anything.
This is kind of one of those controversial topics because if you get into their,
we didn't even know.
We didn't even know. Elizabeth's going to tell us about it.
Yeah, if you get into, how the program's set up and you go, to the state and you look at all the different pieces in that, I can't even think of what it would be called, but that literature, you do not have to. But if you apply, they do require it. So it might, in this area, it might be different in another area. And I know one of the family advocates and I, we've gone, head to head with different people and gone through, and we finally kind of just gave up that fight because in the end, it says one thing, but it's kind of open for interpretation. Yeah. So
I don't think he had
So back then, yeah, probably not so much.
And I think parents as teachers may have told us to go that route because they notice, and that's when I was in denial a little bit, and I fought it like, what are you talking about? There's nothing wrong with him. He's just a little kid. But I brought him there, and I know he didn't have a diagnosis. But that fall, though, he did go into early childhood education. They diagnosed him other health impaired because that's what you give someone where you don't know what's going on, but there's something not right.
Maybe some of the differences back, when our kids that are in their 30s, there wasn't the rate of diagnosing. So now you do have to, and you do have to have a medical diagnosis. That can't even be a school diagnosis.
Well, that's good.
So
yeah, I like that.
I felt like I waited probably too long because I felt like we had good insurance. We had enough. Our finances were enough to take care of his own needs. Or his needs, that we didn't get a regional. I didn't go and get the referral for maybe until he was like 9 or 10, even though he was diagnosed at like 2, because I felt like we were
in control
and everything was going well. I don't think we even went and got the referral until I needed money for camp. Like, or no, it was Art Inspired. It was Miracle Project. So
I think we started Eric in like 8, and I think for some reason I'm recalling we waited a long time to get into the regional center. Was that a possibility, or we didn't?
Was there a long wait?
Not for me. Not when he's 32, right? Yeah. So.
Or was it that he just didn't qualify, and then we had to keep going back to quit him to qualify?
it could have been because they do have certain time limits. Just like school has certain. But there's that time frame, but then there's reality too. So sometimes families do wait, or maybe forms weren't filled out correctly or something. So if it could have just been more of an anomaly, but it takes a little bit of time. Or if they got back with you and said, hey, well, we need this and we need that, and then it takes you time to gather those records from school or whatever, then that will definitely lengthen the time.
Okay.
I see. So I just remember that I don't think it took that long to get in there, and that could have just been a fluke for us. I just knew friends told me, you've got to get there, you need services, And so I was just doing what I was told back then. And then hence we were with the regional center, we were appointed a support coordinator and told that person will help you make sure my son, it's Conrad. He said I could say his name, but I'm forgetting that he told me that I could, so now I am saying it. So
did they help you get services?
We were signed not when he was little. No, and we had I don't even remember the first one that he had at the regional center. She was okay. She was pretty good, but he was so young. He was getting all his services at school. Yeah. He had speech and OT and special ed and resource room and all that. So not till he was older did we think that he needed them. And they go over plans once a year. You meet with them once a year at that point and just go over the plan, and they ask a lot of questions of your individual, your child.
Goals.
Put goals down. But anyway, I think they're really good to have. They were until recently when in Greene County, in Southwest Missouri, the provider that we were with, the provider we were with took away all of those individuals that do not have Medicaid, that they could not support them anymore.
Yes. So in the past, they had always provided support coordination, whether you had Medicaid or not.
Right.
And they had said numerous times, we're not getting paid because your daughter doesn't have Medicaid, but we're still going to continue to do support coordination.
Yeah.
And that went on for a couple years. And many other areas of the state had actually made this move that they could no longer afford to do support coordination unless they were getting reimbursed by Medicaid. So recently, 7 months ago, we received a letter stating that no more support coordination through the Next Step here in Greene County, and that you needed to reach out to the regional center. And that led us to not much of anything.
There's an 800 number we can call.
There was an 800 number, and it took 2 months for them to call me. Wow. And finally, I finally got through after calling I actually called the state, Jefferson City. They put me in contact with a gentleman that's in charge of all this, the support coordination through the regional center when you don't have Medicaid. And so he ended up coming back within about 15, 20 minutes. And I had a good conversation with him. Mm-hmm. He stated that, I don't have my notes in front of me, but they have only so many people that can offer support coordination to individuals without Medicaid. And it's support coordination, really. They're not going to reach out to you. They're not going to do the yearly meetings. It's just basically by need. So if you need something.
Like a helpline?
Yes. If you need something, give them a call, and they will search and try to find any kind of services or supports for you if needed. Now, mind you, it took 2 months for them to call me back. So, when you do call this number, when you need something, how much of a hurry are they going to
look like?
What's it going to look like? Yeah. So basically, the Next Step or Abilities First have dumped, I say dump, they have there's 200 families now that they had dumped, and then there's more in the future.
Right, because you don't have Medicaid. And let me also say the regional center, we were no longer with the regional center because I don't know how many years ago we were given a choice. I don't know what was passed in Greene County, probably that we had a choice of what provider we wanted. And so I left the regional center, as did you and a lot of you here. and went with abilities first. And under abilities first falls first steps, the next step. And so that's where a lot of our kids have been all this time until this year when we were told we can no longer have services because we don't have Medicaid, which, I feel like is counterproductive because I was raised, you don't get Medicaid unless you really need it. He has private insurance right now. He didn't need a lot of services, and he is working in the community. So it's like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. The state wants you to work. They want it to be temporary. Although I am well aware that a lot of people with disabilities need Medicaid for their whole life, and there's nothing wrong with that, and that's good, and I'm glad it's there. But it doesn't seem right that we're getting penalized.
That's why I
for
feel
a child with disabilities, that we're doing the best we can to give them a great life and a successful life.
So, and Kelsey, this is the way I explained it to the individual that is now the supervisor of Abilities First. I explained to her, I was like, okay, so my daughter, we've worked very hard to get my daughter where she is today. Yes. Lots of therapies, lots of things. She's independent. She does have a full-time job with benefits, and we've worked really, really hard to get her to that point. And then now you're going to turn around and penalize her, dump her to where she doesn't have support coordinators because she makes too much money for Medicaid.
Yeah, that too. Exactly.
Yeah. And so now it comes down to, as a parent, we're not always going to be here. I do want somebody there, to help support coordinate her when I'm not here. And so when I'm not here anymore, who's going to be there for her?
It's more worry
nobody, because she doesn't have Medicaid.
Yeah, it's more of a worry every day the older you get.
It's just the issue, the funding structure, though, wouldn't you say, Elizabeth? Because there are other services that we couldn't get with Zachary before he had his waiver because it was only funded or those providers were only paid through Medicaid. There was no other way to private pay for something, or would you say that is true in most cases?
I think so, but but Kara makes an excellent point in that they're punishing her basically, and not leaving another avenue because what. But I think
another avenue. It's a private pay or
well, we asked.
It's a book decision.
Mary and I had gone and spoke after this happened. We had gone to speak with them and asked them, just to kind of brainstorm with them. Is there any other way? Self-pay. I said I'd even be willing to pay so much an hour to have this support coordination, once a year, just so that we have it. And the issue is because they are a Medicaid. They get Medicaid funding, we would have to turn around and pay the same as what Medicaid would reimburse them for, which was just going to be an outrageous amount of money.
I'm not sure what the rules are, but I will say it is frustrating from, because for Zachary, we were trying to even get him into a day program, and we're unable to private pay for that because, you know what I mean? So I think...
Yeah, you have to give up your waiver to get the other kind of waiver.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he didn't have any waiver at that point. Right. So, but yes, you feel like you're just kind of left high and dry.
And let's be clear, they didn't really do a whole lot for us in a good way.
Really because there wasn't the need.
There wasn't the need. Yeah. That's a good thing because they were successful outside. So it's not like we were.
That's what I was going to ask. What were you using them for?
Correct.
I mean, because I feel like we've had service coordination and we haven't. I mean, they check in. This is in Christian County.
That's Christian County,
which you guys have told me that because I wondered. I was like, wait a second, we don't have Medicaid and we still have service coordination.
Exactly.
So Christian County is different.
Christian County did still decide. The last I heard that whether you had Medicaid or not, they will still provide the support coordination for you guys.
We haven't used any of the services because we provided ourselves. Right. But so what do you need them for?
She really didn't need them for anything because we always provided it for her. Even through since she was 2 years old and she had the support coordinators through the regional center before it switched over to abilities first and the next step. We always provided it. We just mainly had a meeting once a year. They would kind of tell you of the different things that's going on in that meeting that Kelsey may benefit from.
I had some come to IEP meetings.
Yeah.
They helped the transition from high school to picking out a provider for employment. They helped with that.
But you never know with our kids when they're going to need
When they're gonna
something.
need
To me, it was a good.
They may not need anything right now, but in the future they may.
I mean, it's a safety net. It's a nice safety
Yeah.
net
That's what I was
to
gonna
have the tools.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's about the relationship. Because if she needed something, then or say something happened to you and Roger, right? She would then have to navigate this all herself. Say she was traumatized and couldn't work, or say like with your son, he didn't have a right to work anymore, and so all of a sudden they're in this world, and then they have to apply for Medicaid. And then they have to,
And we know
apply
how
for the-
difficult that is
Yes.
all in
Lord.
itself.
And then they have to apply to the Department of Mental Health, and they got to collect all their records, and they have no one there to help them through those steps. So it's really about the relationship. It's a safety net that's been pulled out from under.
Right. It always gave me a good feeling to have them. In fact, we were updating our will and our trust at that time, and I put it in there. I always had put that in there. Contact abilities first. It's da 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 da. Because I thought, phew, at least someone knows. And I will say they did help my son on his job coach not too long ago. Within the last couple of years, they were very, very helpful. So, yeah, I wasn't paying for them, but through Medicaid, but they did help. And let me say this too, and I asked that question, and help me, Kara, but we have a Greene County disability tax that we pay. And I referenced it as the same that growing up in St. Louis, my parents sent all 4 kids to Catholic schools, but yet we still had a Rockwood School District tax that we still paid, but we didn't, my parents didn't send the kids there. I feel like it's kind of the same. Like I'm still, even though it's a very small amount, everyone's getting, you're still taxing me. Why can't I use something, for disability? I don't know.
Well, you've got
You know what I'm
200
saying?
more families that received this letter, and they're sitting out there spinning, with no, support coordinator. So they're in the same boat,
Yeah.
and more down the pipeline. So when's it going to stop?
Yeah. And is it going to change more probably not for Medicaid people, but
Well, and I think currently right now, they provide support coordinators in Greene County. They provide it to individuals that have Medicaid and individuals that have swap services
okay.
too. So they still offer, because they get paid for the swap services.
reimbursed, yes.
And reimbursed.
And that's that Southwest Autism Project funding.
Yes.
Okay.
We have a podcast on that
Yes,
too,
yeah.
coming out.
Yes.
Or would have
Or maybe would have already played.
played before this one goes. Yeah.
So yeah, you might want to go back and listen to the swap services. But having said that, it just makes me sad, and uneasy knowing I don't have that backup plan. So I understand politics and money and funding and all that, but I don't know. Part of me felt like, is this discrimination? Like, this is not fair. Like, what? They're already discriminated enough, as it is that we fight for. That sounds really like a sob story, but we all know what that feels like.
We fight for everything.
We fight for
that's
everything.
That's a reality story, not a
you.
sob story.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather.
You're good, Mary. That's true.
But we
So-
have to have keep the conversation going.
Right. And that's why we're doing this subject.
And really, just listening to Kara, and I've known, we've talked a little bit about this, but then really sitting down and listening to why it's so important to her has just even opened my eyes even further on how
Okay.
how scary it is. It's not just unfair. It is unfair, but it's not just that. There's a lot more there when you look at the individual families and what they need, and is it an only child? Are they an only child?
Right.
Just like getting into those benefits and stuff, having somebody to help.
Oh, for sure.
And even knowing, a lot of times when I've talked with families, the support coordinators help you to answer questions you didn't know how to ask.
Yeah.
Correct. You don't know what's out there.
Yeah.
If you don't know what to ask about it, if you don't even know it exists.
Right. And a lot of them are very, very knowledgeable on all of that information. I mean, I've asked questions before, and, he's had some really wonderful, wonderful service coordinators. I've always said this, that one of my favorites is now the director of CC Langston, Christian County. She was wonderful for him, Andrea Swope, and I think Stacy Richardson is there too. She helped him a lot. And I'm sorry I'm leaving a couple other out that I can't remember their names because that's just who I am right now. But yeah.
Well, there's so many sometimes to remember.
Well,
because
right.
You get a new one every.
That was my situation.
Yeah, they do come and go.
I live in Greene County. As far as I know, I still have support coordination.
Even though you don't have Medicaid, however,
No,
you're
I do.
applying.
I do have Medicaid.
Okay, you do.
And so JR, doing estate planning and somehow Abilities First was telling me to apply for Medicaid. And it's like, okay, we don't really need it at this point because he's covered by his father's insurance. But you're saying in order for you to get paid, we need to apply for Medicaid. Okay, we can do that. We have no other, JR doesn't receive SSI, or any other benefit, state benefit. And I think he would qualify. It's like EGADS. I hear about some people who qualify, and, I take but never mind that. You feel a little...
That qualify that shouldn't be qualified? Is that what you're going to say?
Well, they do, but JR just seems to be a ball of needs sometimes. I'll put it that way. Even though, he's holding a job right now. So I had to reapply for Medicaid recently, submit the paperwork in August. So I had to go to my son and tell him, JR, we are applying for Medicaid. This is for long-term planning purposes. You cannot have more than $2,000 in your name. Now, here's what we're going to do. You're going to pay us rent. You're going to sign off that I'm taking this excess money in your account so that we can still have Medicaid. And we're going to put it over here in an account. It's not on your name, but shh, 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 shh. Wink, wink. There's a possibility that you could get it back for us if you ask real nicely. And here's another thing that irritates me.
I'm not saying this on the...
I know.
Sure.
But you know what? This is what you have to do.
Yeah.
Well, actually, there's something called an ABLE account.
Right. Yes.
And that's what you should probably be using.
Yes. Right.
Dawn is going tomorrow to get an ABLE
Yes,
account.
Sorry, already done. Already done.
Okay, he's already done it, yes.
Because
With Nathan. Another Nathan.
right.
Yes.
Okay. So that was when we applied for Medicaid the first time. No, the first time we applied, he didn't have a job. So there wasn't any money.
Funds.
The next time, competitive job, working at Miller Coach, he had excess. So he's not spending every penny, which is good. I want to encourage him to save. Sure. Sorry, JR. So I take $3,000 last year to put it in the ABLE account. Mm-hmm. Now, how ludicrous is this? The state knows this. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take $3,000 because he can't have this excess money. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put it in an ABLE account, and you know about it and you manage it. Wink, wink. And that makes everything okay.
Exactly.
And I have to explain to my son, okay, last year we took $3,000 and it went into your ABLE. This time we're going to take $2,000 of money that you have earned. And isn't that what we want? We want him to have a job. Mm-hmm. We don't want him sitting at home collecting SSI playing video games.
Right.
We want him working. And it just seems like a shell game.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
The state knows what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so even though I said on mic that we took the $2,000 and we're going to charge him rent, it's like there are a lot of parents out there who are getting SSI, getting other benefits, and that's how they do it. And it's justified, I think. JR staying in my home. I feed him. I clothe him. I'm paying his transportation needs. So
It's justified.
yeah,
And you,
I
and
sort
you
of feel
actually
like it's
you have
justified.
to. You have to. Otherwise, if he's not paying rent at his age, he would not get the maximum benefits.
Well, Zachary
you
doesn't
have
get
to
them
hit.
because he's staying with his parents. So we don't get the maximum amount of SSI in the first place.
Does he pay rent?
But he could, and you
Yeah,
would.
Yeah.
right. So they've deducted, like, he doesn't get the full amount because he's living with us.
Okay.
Yeah. So that
So all we want to do is keep Medicaid, so that we continue support coordination for the very reasons that Kara's already expressed.
Yeah.
Because when I'm gone and my daughter, sort of becomes his de facto guardian, even because he's not under guardianship. So if something would happen to her and whoever we name as a successor trustee, I'd sort of like the state to know, there's a difference here. And I'm going to be meeting with my new support coordinator October 2nd, and we're going to draft this plan. And, you just put stuff about your child so that in case something happens,
Right.
there's this written
Somebody that does
document,
know.
somebody that knows in this written document that sort of lays out, here's a little bit about my son. Here's some things that he likes, things that he doesn't like.
Yes,
and
that paperwork does get very specific. So
The
that is
annual
helpful to
plan,
the
that,
person.
that
reading it,
annual
yes.
plan. And so then that stays with JR and gets modified so that the state, if the worst happens, somebody's aware.
Well, it protects extended family because extended family are the ones that we're going to have to, the uncle in California. I've taken these calls and they, where something's happened to all the immediate family members and, aging. And so, it also, it's that plan that protects them and those family members so that that person doesn't have to go back and start at ground zero.
Right.
Their life doesn't have to change that much. They've already.
Right. Yeah, I've started that since we've updated our will and trust and it's already complete and everything. But and that happened. I have a rough draft. I'm not even finished yet. Kind of doing my own mock-up plan that I had at Abilities First and putting it in my paperwork because that's so important.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
That's
don't
sort
know
of what we're doing
There-
too.
if I'm just over the top, but I worry about like everything really. But okay, what do they know that he has trouble giving blood at the, just so many things that someone has to know. It's just overwhelming.
The ARC of the U.S. has on their website I can't remember what it's called, but it's got that life care plan where you can answer a bunch of questions and they'll write that. But what's missing is the connections, the relationship. But you can. There are different
didn't know
programs
that.
out there. But the ARC of the U.S. If you look up there,
The ARC of the US.
it'll
Okay.
talk about it.
I just don't feel like we had that. We still have coordination, and we've never had a connection though because they only come every year, and
We're supposed
it's
to
a
check in
different.
quarterly.
Yeah, we have.
Well, yeah. She sometimes would call and try to set it up, but I wasn't real motivated to meet with her. So, and it was a lot of times a different. I'm sorry, I'm just being truthful. But
Why were you not motivated? Just
because we didn't get anything from them.
Kelsey didn't get anything.
The only thing that I ever remember trying to get services was maybe art inspired, but I feel like I even paid that out of pocket because I didn't want to.
Yeah, you have to pay that out of pocket.
Yeah.
Classes. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know of anything, and I think the Senate bill paid for Camp Barnabas. So I'm trying to figure out if there was anything we ever got.
So we have CC links.
Well, the Senate bill.
We've had
Yeah, but
several different ones, and they're helping us with, all of it. So
Yeah.
So you're happy.
well, yes, the turnover was quite often, so that it wasn't helpful for several years. But we have quarterly meetings. Like she has to see that he is alive and well.
Yeah.
She has a home visit basically every quarter, and then we do the annual planning. But even like, the classes that he was going to, that was going through swap services, which she also, that went through her as well. So, yeah.
And you have Medicaid.
Now, when Zion was, I do want to clarify that when Zion was little, she was here quarterly. I'm talking about as he's gotten older.
Right.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about too. She comes she's pretty in touch with me most of the time. Like she'll send me stuff, but I think that's because what we're talking about is future planning. Really, everyone's worried about future planning, which is certainly
Or
a
current
constant
planning.
worry.
I mean,
yes, but ultimately, like what Kara was talking about, if I'm not here logistically doing certain things, who's gonna help with that kind of stuff? And that is true that it may not be the person that we have right now for Zachary, but certainly the state would be aware
It's
if we
documented.
both die, yes, that he'll have to have a, comprehensive waiver, and we'll have to have, room in an ISL form or whatever.
So what are the things that you get through them? I mean, like, tell me specifically.
She's the one that helped me find
So the
speech and OT
waivers?
therapy.
Okay.
So she manages the waiver, the hours for DSPs that I have. Anything that he might
Yeah.
supports. Yes, Elizabeth.
Nate's monitoring for his seizures. That's paid.
Okay.
That comes through there as well. So, but yeah, and then the waiver, if we were to do any swap,
They just help you with the paperwork on what
the
you
funding.
need.
No, they
And
do.
the funding.
Yeah, all of that. And actually, they walked us through when we were doing guardianship and all that stuff. They were an emotional support, at least. I didn't have the same person that I have now, but they did walk us through the process. Like, you need to do this now, you need to do this next, you need to do this now, you need to fill this out. And at least I had somebody at least guiding me, because no one helps you otherwise.
Yeah, no, they can be very helpful. I mean, even when we had them, I remember calling Stacey Richardson, I think, and I said, tell me again about Medicaid. What does this mean? It was just so nice to know that I could just call and she was there. Someone was there, but now
It just seems
I
like
really don't have anybody except for the 800 number that I need to call.
and that's what we're
There's 2 months to get back with you.
It just seems like foundationally, if it's only Medicaid, then that's where the core problem is, because then people that are, not a Zachary and they're working and whatever, it's like can't be the only gate to help. And right now, it's the only gate to help. I mean, that's how it's structured. And God bless the government and all, but shall we go to Capitol Hill? Where are we going? We need to talk to somebody.
Right.
You should be able to have a way to privately pay, like you said, by the hour, anything for those
that was
types of
turned down
services.
flat.
It was turned down.
Yeah,
It was
and
turned down
it
flat.
would be in this particular, in this landscape, it definitely would be. It just needs to change.
Or even maybe some of the funding that goes to abilities first, because they do have their own program Next Step, so they kind of monitor, I guess, or manage their own program. They get the funding, then they turn around, and then that goes to the next step, and then support coordinators work for the next step. So even if there was maybe another company other than the Next Step, or another funding source, or even if they come up with a nonprofit of some sort that they could raise for these individuals, the 200 people that they dumped. There's got to be another way to fund this, because it comes down to funding.
Right.
I wonder if this
just
is.
sad.
Remember, I sent you guys that link to the Autism Cares bill.
Yes, I saw
passed-
that.
That passed the House. I wonder if okay, so
The
I'm
president
looking
needs
at
to
it.
sign it by
Yeah.
September 30th, right?
I think it has to go to the Senate first. So the little subheading is to amend the Public Health Service Act to enhance and reauthorize activities and programs relating to autism spectrum disorder and for other purposes. I'm wondering if this would reauthorize. I'm just interested in wondering.
And not just Medicaid.
Yeah. So I don't know. We'll have to look farther,
Yes.
into that because
good
it
point.
passed the House, but it hasn't passed the Senate. And
Right.
it hasn't been signed, of course. So
Right.
we need to research that a little
More
bit more.
details on
Yeah.
that section of that. But having said that, service coordinators, I keep saying service coordinators. Those are in the special ed department in schools. Support coordinators are very, very helpful and resourceful.
Can be.
Can be. So if you don't have one, I think you should have one. whatever county you live in, if you're still allowed to have one, Medicaid or not Medicaid, they can be very helpful and a relief and just a phone call away if you need something. And they have a lot of good information to help support you. And they're supposed to give that individual the best life they can have. I think that's what I was told when I first asked, like, what do you really do? Like, what's your goal? Well, to give your son the best life that he can. And I said, okay, with whatever services are out there. So if you don't have one, look in your area because they are worth it. They may change a lot from year to year.
And if they're new, you may be training them.
Right.
Because if you've been doing this for a while, but that's okay. They need to learn.
You could have them listen to this podcast.
Right.
They can learn every week.
Yes.
Because we're still learning.
Yes.
But
I think it comes down to passion. Just if you find a passionate one that is assigned to you, I mean, because it's all luck, right? Mm-hmm. But we've had a new one. She was new in the last couple of years, and she's been our best because she's passionate about finding, like, she's excited about, okay, let's find speech. Because I didn't know and she didn't know, and we figured it out together. And then once she did know, a lot of her other clients were helped by that resource.
That's awesome.
That was, that she found. So, I think passion is a good key too for a good support coordinator.
Yeah, and I've had a couple support coordinators who were parents, and one who was parent of an autistic child.
Yeah,
so
They get it a little bit better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
What do we hear?
that the passion is there.
yeah,
Right. Right.
So I mean, maybe that's a suggestion: hire more parents.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we mentioned that too, didn't we?
Yeah, we did mention this topic.
Yeah,
Yes.
but yeah.
Yeah. You have to have.
You have to have a 4-year degree.
You have to have a 4-year degree.
Well, parents
Well, I
have
mean,
4-year degrees.
yeah.
There's a lot of parents.
Well, I know, but I'm saying that they didn't want to broaden their audience to even 2-year degrees
Wow.
or work experience because they said that you had to have a 4-year degree or the state of Missouri wouldn't reimburse.
Well, and isn't it like social work? I mean, the degrees are specific too. I don't think it's.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've
So
always.
they won't take my history degree.
I don't think so. But I think sometimes, if you compare it with work you've done and other things, but
Oh man, Don, you would be an awesome
you would be.
service coordinator.
We all would be.
I would support
honestly.
for you.
We all
Yeah.
would be. We all would.
I
be.
wouldn't. I know I wouldn't. I have no idea what's going on.
Well, I think the paperwork too, depending on your caseload, if you had 50 families, 60 families, whatever, and you had, that would be overwhelming, I think, even from their perspective. And one of my support coordinators who was an autism dad didn't last long.
Oh, that's right.
Disappointing, but I certainly understood. And then I go back to Connie Klein's comment about evidently before she retired from teaching in the public schools, they came to her with this opportunity to set up an autism early childhood classroom program. And she thought about it, but said, I can't. I live this at home.
Yeah.
I don't want to live it during the day as well.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you understand that as
Yeah.
well.
Right.
I think we all do.
Right.
But there are parents out there with 4-year degrees
Oh,
who
yeah,
can
there
do
are.
this.
Yes.
And we were talking a point that don't mean to point there. Oh,
Dawn was pointing at me vigorously.
and making faces. Something that I had learned from you that I hadn't learned from a support coordinator or anybody else, and that was that my son could stay on his father's health insurance past 26.
Right.
And I
So,
just
I mean-
learned it from Dawn.
Yeah. We were talking about it during the break.
Yes.
And so, I mean,
Because I actually did apply. The one time I used our service coordinator, which is a very nice lady. I don't remember her name because we don't use her very often. But she helped us apply for Medicaid.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what happened to that application. It got lost. It's not.
of course.
But
it did.
yeah. So, but I just
The government, not.
Yeah,
lose a
because
lot of
I was
applicants.
worried about Zion having health insurance after 26 or 27, and Dawn just told me that he
Yeah.
can stay on Jason.
I believe it's in
So
the
I-
Disability Act that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Forever.
So I learned that from another parent. And I've said on this podcast before, you know, parents are sometimes the best resource. And so, as far as knowledge on how to navigate, I have probably learned more from you all, other parents.
Correct.
Me too,
There's- same here.
definitely.
And the nice thing about the technology is, I mean, can you imagine if Facebook had been around when our kids were younger?
Right.
So it's so much easier to get in contact with other parents.
Well, I mean, we always sort of say this, that we're specialists with our own children. I know all the things that Zion needed and needs. And that's my speciality. And if I didn't need it, then I didn't pursue it because I only had so much strength and focus. So that's me saying that I'm not actually a complete ignorant person.
No, you're not.
It's just that I
4-year degree, working on a master's.
yeah. I just I was I'm specializing in just Zion. So
Yes, we all
That's
are.
good.
But
and
Cynthia,
Alexa.
does
That's
Eric,
what I just
didn't know it.
specialize in, Eric. Pardon?
yeah, does Eric have a service coordinator still?
He does now because he left Greene County and moved to Miller.
Oh, that's right.
So I don't know if he ever sees her.
Okay.
or what she does for him.
Yeah. They've never done that much for him.
Might be interesting though, like even if they need a daycare or something, he could fall into a whole new category being a father where they might help out with resources. You never know.
Well, I should tell them that then.
Yeah. I mean, that was the good thing about having a support coordinator. Like, hey, he could call and say, hey, is there any daycare or,
Exactly.
Does he get Social Security disability or
no,
anything?
he doesn't
'Cause
get anything.
I do know that Head Start, if one of the parents, they would qualify for Head Start
because they had a diagnosis.
because they get funds from like Social Security disability or something like that.
I see.
And they lost Medicaid when he got married
Oh, okay. Because he made too much money then.
because she made too much money.
Yeah. Well,
So, yeah.
well,
But he needs to check into that. And Catherine, we can both talk to the person that comes. I think she used to come. She'd been to their house once. I know that. So I don't know if they've been back or not.
right. You just never know. And that was one of the benefits of having a support coordinator.
Well, and
You just never knew if you needed something.
and they were a singular person, but they had a whole team behind them.
Exactly.
So if they didn't know the answer and you didn't figure it out together, they had people to go to.
Right, right. And the ARC does not have support coordination. Or they do. They don't. No, I didn't. That's what you said earlier. There wasn't the communication, but they had the plan. You told me about the plan. The life plan.
And that's Heather hit the word. It was future planning. So that's the ARC of the U.S. So that's a national.
That's a different. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
but the
Okay.
program,
Okay, ARC of the US.
you can go there and it's called future. You just look under their initiatives and it says future planning.
Okay.
And so then it has the template and everything to put that together. And there are other places that do that as well. But the ARC doesn't, since it's just kind of a templated, auto-generated type thing. There's not a cost to it that I know of. So
Right. Okay. Okay.
I would bet money that Autism Speaks has something to.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, they probably Autism Speaks. Yes. Anything else on support coordinators?
So one thing,
ahead.
this is Elizabeth. I was thinking of, kind of being that middle person is when we think about families and we're waiting for our support coordinator to do something. It's hard to wait, and it seems like things aren't getting done. But then when you're the support coordinator and you've got all these other things you're doing, time goes fast, and all of a sudden, you were supposed to get back with them on Monday, but it's Thursday and you've just gotten to that person on your list because you have that, 30, 40, 50 other things. It's just interesting. When do you guys think it's okay to be patient with the support coordinator, and when is it okay to push? Because it really is that time factor. Because I've been on both sides. I think, well, I'm going to go check this out, and I'll get back with this caller, and then I send an email to this person, or I call them, and I don't hear back from them for 2 or 3 days, and then it's the weekend, and it's Friday afternoon, so I'll just get a hold of them Monday.
Right.
All of a sudden, a week's gone by, and I'm like, wow, but they were waiting. So it's really, I could see both sides because it goes really fast when you're helping other people and doing other things. But if you're waiting for one answer,
How much pain are you in? I mean, are you in crisis? Then I'm sorry, help me now.
Right.
But if I've asked a question and there's no urgency to it, then, please be patient. Other people are in crisis.
Right.
And this is just me. If this is Kara, and if you tell me get back with me in 2 days, get back with me in 2 days. If not, then just send me an email or call me and say, hey, I'm still working on it.
Exactly.
I mean, it's a respect thing. So, and I understand you've got, 15 other people you're support coordinating with, but don't make me wait a week. I mean, if you give me a timeline, stick with the timeline.
A week's too long.
Yeah.
And mine will just text me as well. And she might say, we're still in the process, still waiting or whatever, just to check in real quick to let me know she hasn't forgotten, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's just decent.
It is, yes.
Respect. And
Yes.
I was just wondering what you thought, because as a parent, you're trying to build a relationship with this person that has all the control of the fund, a lot of the funding and services, but if they're not doing the job or they're not moving along, we just, on the way down, I was on a phone call with our new support coordinator, and she was just lovely and calling me and updating me. And she says, yep, I sent it to this person, but then I found out they were on vacation, and then they came back from vacation and got COVID. And then, so now it's been signed and now it's back to DMH, and that person's on vacation. And, being able to catch me up and get me that update meant a lot, because I wasn't hearing it. And I just, this thing they were working on just kept dragging and dragging and dragging.
Yeah.
But giving me the respect to say, this is where we're at.
Yeah, that was respectful. But it is disappointing when something takes so long. Yeah, very, very much so. Well, shout out to all the good support coordinators out there.
Thank you.
We thank you very much. There are some good ones out there.
Yeah, those that
Some
email
amazing
back in
ones.
2 days,
Yeah.
according to Kara. Those that email back in 2 days. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So we do thank you for all your hard work that you do. And hopefully one of these days we'll get back to having a support coordinator. So who knows?
The ABLE account got pushed through. ABLE accounts
The ABLE account got pushed through, which, by the way, we need to talk about the ABLE account on another podcast, which is very important. So
But that's parents, right?
yeah, I don't know. Was
Autism
it?
insurance?
I didn't know that.
I think so.
Okay.
Because parents were parents and self-advocates.
Oh,
and as
okay.
far and the autism insurance. So
Yeah.
this is
parents,
is the next one.
We know parent fingerprints are behind just about every major
Good point, Dawn.
Everything.
success.
Good point.
Well, the self-advocates too. But
Right.
if we dug into the history.
Isn't that true about everything, though? I mean, there's fingerprints. I mean, when it means the most to you is those are the people that are going to push for it.
Yeah.
I mean, like civil rights, women's rights.
Right.
Those
Right.
are the people. It should matter to everybody, but
Right. And I think we also talked about having support coordinators on the podcast if they still want to come on after.
this was CC Links. CC Links will come up.
Yes. Yeah, I think she agreed to come on, I believe. So, and just get more of a
feed you.
story.
Maybe I'll create a connection with them. And
Yes.
I'll know who my support coordinator is. That's so sad. It's not mine. It's Zion's. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry.
That's right. So, if you're a guest on this podcast, we actually do feed you. We have dinner first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And even dessert.
And
that
Kara makes wonderful desserts.
So, for true. Anyway, okay. Thank you very much for listening. A shout out to the support coordinators that do their job really, really well. We appreciate you. Until next time, Tara, where can everyone find us?
Okay, you can listen to us on Apple and Spotify podcasts. You just search for Navigating Adult Autism. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We would love for you to listen and give us 5 stars and subscribe. That would be wonderful because that helps us get more listeners. And then you can contact us through moms@navigatingadultautism.com.
That's great. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.